Awesome. Okay, we'll go ahead and convene the October 22nd Transportation Committee meeting. Introductions are in order. I'm Scott Diener, the chair, council member position 3. You're muted, Heidi.
Heidi Fenton, council member.
Mark Trenary, council member position 1.
Rob Patansu, mayor.
Dennis Ryan, Public Works Director.
Nick Bond, Community Development Director.
Christian Williams, Assistant City Engineer.
Chris Hammer, City Engineer.
Jim Fisk, Principal Planner.
My name is Aaron Knight with SCJ Alliance.
I'm Matt Wyrock. I'm also with SCJ Alliance.
Okay. No other introductions. We've got an agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, review of the agenda, Chris or whoever's leading
The
this. do you want to
agenda
go over a quick.
Um,
Sorry.
Could somebody put the agenda up on the screen?
I can share the agenda if that would be easier.
I guess.
I
what's the first-
apologize. My computer's freezing on me. I'm stuck here. So I will let you do that.
Well, but Scott has the ability to do that unless you enable it.
Let me try one more time.
Is SCJ Alliance the first item? I just want to make sure we value their time and let them go
Yep.
first. That was my only concern.
Are they
I
the,
can't open any attachments right now without restarting. Sorry. Chris, do you have your agenda?
So the first up on the agenda was just updates, but we can hold those till last. And then we've got Bethel phase 1 to talk a little bit about or to put forward different alternatives for landscaping in the roundabouts, the center roundabouts. And then next up is an introduction to Sydney non-motorized project, the extents of the project, kind of what the project entails.
okay, let's kick it off with Bethel phase 1.
That's you, Matt.
Okay. All right. I saw you talking for a second. Looks like our landscape architect did not quite make it on, so I'm going to present. Oh, looks like I have to send a request to present.
Do we want to switch over to the other presentation then? I mean, Aaron's here, so.
Oh, Aaron,
Sydney non-motorized.
if you would like to, and I can run down the hall and see if I can see what's happening with Trent.
Yeah,
Hey, Dennis, did you give permission to share screen yet?
I just did. I do not know why I'm not, stuff is not going through. It popped up, gave permission to Matt. Matt, will you try pinging me again and I'll try hitting it again?
Aaron, are you good to go on sitting instead? I'll
Yeah.
go see if I can get Trent.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be
All
happy
right.
to. I did
So
just
we're
send
gonna-
Trent the link as well to make sure he has the correct one.
There we go.
Okay,
There it is.
Sydney non-motorized improvements.
Okay, yeah, I'd be happy to go first. Well, good evening, everybody. Again, my name is Aaron Knight with SCJ Alliance. Very pleased for the opportunity to come present regarding the City Road non-motorized improvements to you this evening. We've been working on this project with the city for a few months now and excited to provide some status update. So just to kind of recap on the project goals, or I guess start out with the project goals. So the city has recently completing a non-motorized improvement along Pottery Avenue. And so this is essentially an extension of that, which is extending all the way down to where the new Kitsap Transit Park and Ride is planned. So this is providing a very significant extension of the sidewalk that will eventually provide that connection to the planned Park and Ride.
Hey, Aaron,
So
I don't believe the project goes all the way to the park and ride lot. It only goes to the Ruby Creek crossing.
that's correct. You're right. It does stop a little shy of the Ruby Creek culvert there. So, but we are, nevertheless, we are extending a significant length along Sydney Road, nearing the park and ride. The project will also provide a number of crosswalk locations across Sydney Road that will have rectangular rapid flashing beacons at some of them. It'll provide a continuous bicycle lane as well. It will also provide utility improvements, including stormwater and a new sewer force main extension to continue down to the planned lift station near Ruby Creek. As well as surfacing improvements to the road, basically an overlay of the road. So as far as completing the continuous sidewalk, there's some sporadic sidewalk that exists in front of some of the developments that have occurred recently, but really looking to fill in a lot of those gaps. And then just regarding the demand that exists or is anticipated to exist in the near future along here, we have 2 schools, we have a number of existing and planned residential areas, we have churches and medical facilities further north, as well as the baseball field in the middle. So there's really a lot of generators and destinations along this corridor, which really demonstrates the need for this sidewalk connection through here.
So can I interrupt just because I'm going to be talking about this tonight in an overview at the end of the council meeting? What is the closest intersection for the beginning of the project there? Is that
It's Lippert. It's Lippert
Lippert? Okay.
to Ruby Creek. Is where
Got
we choke down because we have to build a bridge or a box culvert.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
might be more accurate to say that it's from State Route 16 down to south of Hobe.
Yeah, the overpass just north of Berry Lake.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That's what this shows. So I'm going to run with that.
Yeah. I got a question on that, on Sydney. Is it gonna be like a bike lane too, or where you just paint, or there's gonna be for bicycle right there too?
Yes, there will be a continuous 6-foot bike lane along the corridor and along with the sidewalk. And the sidewalk will be limited to one side. The red line here roughly illustrates that it'll be on the west side of Sydney between Highway 16 and Glenwood, and then it transitions over to the east side of Sydney down to Hovde.
Yeah, now I see it right there, continuous 6 foot. Okay.
And Heidi, were you trying to ask if it's going to be a separated bike lane?
Well, or it's going to be right on the road, right? I mean, it's on the road, but
That's
it's
correct.
Right.
just has paint saying, "Hey, this is a bike lane." Yeah, and that's more economic too to go do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'd have to acquire land if we wanted to do the other.
Yeah. No, this is good.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so as we discussed the project limits here, so there are planned RFB crossings on either side of Sydney Glen Elementary at both Glenwood and Birch. And then we're providing accessible curb ramps at all of the affected project intersections. We're maximizing the use of a grass buffer strip where possible. There's some locations where, because of a variety of reasons, we're going to narrow that buffer up. But as much as possible, we are integrating buffer, and then, as you mentioned, the continuous 6-foot bike lane. As I mentioned, we're also going to be making a number of utility improvements along here. So since we're here doing this, the city installed a force main along with the pottery improvements, or they installed a pipe for a future sewer force main with the pottery improvements. We're going to be tying into that at Berry Lake Road and taking that nearly to the planned loop Ruby Creek lift station. We're going to be getting it there and off to the side of the road, and then the project will be responsible for connecting to it when that project does move forward. We will also be providing stormwater improvements. So because we're putting in a curb and sidewalk, we're changing some of the stormwater flows, and so it provides a good opportunity to clean up some of that work as well. The project is really at a perfect size where we're able to utilize some of the existing facilities as well as build upon them with some new improved facilities without eclipsing any major thresholds that would make the project any more complicated than it needs to be. So it's a really an ideal size a project for as far as stormwater is concerned. One of the unique things is that we do have City of Port Orchard, we do have a stretch that's in Kitsap County, and then we do have some WSDOT jurisdiction near the interchange. So we've been working diligently to coordinate with all of the affected agencies to make sure that everything is being squared up as we're going. So we're keeping that front of mind.
Hey, Aaron, I've got a question backing up to the landscaping. Is that landscaping, that grass you referred to, is that going to be on the road side of the sidewalk or back of the sidewalk on the property side?
It will buffer the sidewalk from the road, so it'll be between the sidewalk and the road. Yes.
I have some maintenance concerns with that, and who's going to mow that grass? We've been using Mountain Laurel as a lower. I guess I personally would like to see some lower, I guess easier to maintain landscape treatments versus grass that we would have to mow. I don't know what others think of that. Dennis, I know that's one of your concerns with your crews.
Yeah, a low shrub would be ideal. And I mean, this is a residential spot, or is it a business?
It's in front of a school, in front of the baseball fields.
Yeah, and they're not gonna be obligated to do the maintenance with a capital project like this.
Okay, yeah, we definitely would be happy to discuss that with staff and look at making that change.
Council members, you just have any
No,
concerns with it?
I personally think grass looks pretty aesthetically pleasing, but then it comes with its own set of headaches.
Irrigation
Yeah.
and mowing.
So I'm okay with other shrubbery that will be low maintenance.
Mhm.
Or
But-
ground cover. We've got some ground covers that we use on Tremont too. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be the Mountain Laurel.
And they don't need much water. I mean, they probably need some water, right? Or,
Not as much as grass though.
mhm.
I would prefer a low maintenance shrub as well. How wide, Aaron, is this projected grass buffer?
Yeah, it give or take around 4 feet or so. It does vary throughout the project.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions on this?
Mm.
So we talked about stormwater utilities. So a couple of the other highlights that we wanted to mention is, for example, there is some other planned improvements across from the Haven Apartments. There's another planned development across the street that would be triggering a turn pocket in the future, and we've already seen some of that preliminary design. And so we took the opportunity with this project to make sure we were placing our curbs and sidewalks in the right spot to allow for those kind of future access improvements and intersection improvements without having to come back and tear up, brand new constructed improvements. So we really tried to look forward at what the future of some of these intersections is going to be to make sure that we're accommodating that. Because again, no one likes seeing something brand new getting tore up within a few years. So, and then just touching on the budget real quick. So the city received a grant. It's a state funding grant through the Safe Routes to Schools program. That program is partially subsidized through the Climate Commitment Act, although it's our understanding that it's not at risk pending any potential, I'm not sure what the exact terminology is, but, rescinding of that act through the election coming up here in a few weeks. So the funding is not at risk so far as we understand. It's approximately 1.4 million to the city received, which when combined with a match is just under 2 million of total funding. That covers the sidewalk improvements and the bike lane improvements. The remainder of the project, which is primarily the overlay and the sewer force main, is going to be funded through city funding. And then, yeah, as mentioned, we've been just threw this note on here as well. Between the city, the county, the state, and the school district is really a great opportunity here for a coordination project between all the affected entities. And so certainly have been prioritizing that. That was the last slide that I had. Was there any other questions on the project?
No, I was just gonna like, oh yeah. Kind of back to the grass just really quick, since it's only 4 feet. Well, and who waters the other side of that? And you have to put in a, like a guard, I mean, how much is that gonna cost to, put the surround, a holder to put, the shrubs in? And that still needs to get watered. And why do we have to even water that area? I would just think we just have to cut it down. I mean, when it, grows up. Because it does rain a lot here. I even got green grass and I don't I don't water my backyard. So, I mean, is it really that much of a maintenance problem? The grass that we have now.
Are you referring to grass or shrubs? What's your question?
No, is it really that much of a maintenance problem to keep the grass? Because I'm saying, why do we even have to water it? Let's just cut it back. We cut it, when it needs to be cut.
Well, it needs to be covered with vegetation for stormwater. We don't want bare dirt.
Right.
So we would be obligated to maintain it. There is ordinances that adjacent property owners are responsible for the frontage in front of their residence or business, but this is a capital improvement project, so that's a little bit tougher to enforce that. So it could be 3 feet tall because nobody's going to take care of it.
Well, no, I understand that the city has to take care of it, but I'm saying cost-wise, to me, mowing that grass isn't that much of a maintenance problem, and we don't have to irrigate it. It's just naturally, the water comes, it just goes into the ground. Why do we have to put an irrigation in there and keep it green all the time?
We're not talking about irrigation. Sorry,
Heidi, I think what I'm hearing is that we're not proposing to have irrigation, that the shrubbery that we've talked about, the low maintenance shrubbery, requires less water than grass.
It would likely have irrigation, but it would be a drip system in the ground. You need some water, and even grass trapped between a paved road and a concrete sidewalk. You're not. It's likely to be challenged for things to grow in that trapped environment like that.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying, Rob. It makes sense. I frankly, depending on the summer and how I feel, let my grass go, and it just quickly dies, or it's taken over by other things. Molehills, weeds are pretty prominent. It is a thing that you have to constantly care for, grass, carefully, and shrubbery seems like it's much less maintenance and then translating to much less money.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're missing my point, though. I'm just saying, just mow it. That's all you have to do. That's how you maintain it. You just mow it. You don't let it, I'm not saying let it just grow. I'm just saying we don't need an irrigation. We don't have to water it. We just mow it. That was just my alternative. To me, it's almost maybe more money putting a little irrigation drip in there, fixing up holders to put the plants in. I mean, I'm good
Heidi,
with
won't grass die if it's not watered, especially with the hotter summers we've been getting?
But isn't that okay to let that grass just die and just cut it back?
Well, I could tell you, I put in a new yard a couple summers ago, and the previous yard, I would let it dry out and it would come back every year. This new grass I got, I let it dry out and it was destroyed and weeds took it over and it looks terrible. I've got to redo it at some point. That's been my personal experience with grass.
Yeah.
And that's because I didn't water it.
Well, yeah, I'm saying it's on the outside of the school and it's probably not even that long. I'm not trying to debate. I'm just saying, I thought it would be easy you just mow it. Isn't that old grass right there anyway? That's not new grass, right?
I think my council member Trineri has his hand raised.
Just my 2 cents worth. All you need to do is move a little farther north on Old Sydney / Pottery underneath 16. We've had several complaints over the last year or two from citizens about the overgrown weeds in front of Cedar Heights. And essentially was just grass that didn't receive water over the years, and it looks like heck. So again, I'm gonna be for the low hanging, low maintenance shrubbery over grass 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, I'm about aesthetics as well, and I don't think dried grass, dead grass, weeded grass looks better than the shrubbery that we're talking about.
Yeah. I'm
All right.
not saying let it go, you know, I'm just saying you mow it, that's all. Anyway, it's not that big of a deal. I'm just thought maybe that would be a lot less expensive.
All right, any other questions on this particular project? All right, are we ready to go back to Bethel Phase 1?
I think everybody's here.
Okay.
And if
Trent,
I
do you
need
wanna
to
just-
give permissions to somebody new, go ahead and ping me.
And Trent, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm assuming everybody can hear me. My name is Trent. I'm a landscape architect at SCJ Alliance. I'm based in the Lacey office. I've been working with Patrick over the last couple months on coming up with some concepts for the roundabout for Huckleberry and
Blueberry and Salmonberry.
Blueberry and Salmonberry. There they are.
And Trent, do you want me to bring those up, or do you have them handy?
I have them handy.
Dennis, can you give Trent permission then?
I think I have it. Let's see. All right, it looks like it is working. Okay. So the first thing that we had done, so we had gotten kind of some ideas that Patrick wanted us to kind of run with on some of these concepts. And so we went with kind of like 3 different ways. We've got kind of a maritime theme. There's a lot of indigenous people based in and around Kitsap County. So we kind of took that into account, and then just looking around some of the different areas of town. You know, you've got the ferry here, and just it's kind of an old maritime themed town. Obviously, it's across the way from the shipyard, but so these are kind of the concepts around town and through Kitsap County that we kind of went with, and then we came up with 3 different concepts. And our idea for this was they could be used at either intersection or either roundabout. We could do one or the other. We just kind of wanted to get some different ideas out there, and you know, create a discussion that you know we could run with. So
From the presentation I got earlier, it was 3 different concepts, and that then once you chose a concept, we would while they wouldn't match identically, that from the concept, then they would landscape the individual roundabouts. One, I think, is a little larger than the other. Anyway, go ahead, Trent.
Yeah, you're right. One is a little smaller. But I think they would work in either one, and we could adjust scale as needed. But yeah, so our first one was more of an indigenous kind of design. It's kind of based off of Corten steel kind of wings, with some sort of a indigenous laser cut, I guess logo isn't the right word, but you know, we'd take something from one of the local tribes and create different ideas along those. And so this one is more, it would be kind of less intense as far as landscape goes. We'd use different colored rocks throughout to make it easy to maintain. We would have some landscaping, but very little. We would have a center tree in there, and then a couple different colored rocks just to kind of offset and create different areas within this. Another thing that we were asked to talk about was incorporating some uplighting. And so that's kind of where we went with these kind of wings. It'd be something that we could shine light up against. We could change it throughout the year. They make a lot of great LED lights that can be white, they can be red, they can be green, it can be all sorts of different colors. And we could change that with the seasons if you wanted to. And then we would also uplight a tree in the center of this concept.
Won't that gravel scatter? I mean,
Nobody should be on the island. It's in the center of a roundabout.
mhm.
I think
Walking.
maybe Heidi's asking, will it be retained? Will there be a slight curb or something that keeps it from spilling out?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would want it retained. We would probably use some sort of a metal edging to keep it separated if we had different colors next to each other. It would also be a crushed rock, which has a tendency to bind together,
Yeah.
so it wouldn't be loose. Obviously, if somebody went in there and like started digging it, it wouldn't be permanent, but
Yeah.
it's used regularly as in roundabouts, and it wouldn't migrate.
Mhm.
And typically we keep it below the curb anyway, so that, you know, if you got a heavy rain or whatever, it wouldn't even wash away.
Mhm. And then the city maintains that, because once you get weeds and stuff going in there, when we have weeds popping out on all kinds of roundabouts, that's maybe not right here in the city, but
We're gonna have to make
the county.
two more concepts to share.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, you would have to do some maintenance. I mean, it wouldn't be, I suppose you could do different paving styles, like a stamped concrete or something in there, in lieu of gravel. And then you would have very little weeds growing through there, but you know, weeds will grow anywhere. So there's always going to be a maintenance issue with anything.
Mhm.
Really,
Our second concept,
these
kind
designs
of,
were- the emphasis of all these designs were, Scott, you were kind of the driver of, you wanted something unique on this corridor. So that's why we're, kind of trying to elevate our game here.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think the first presentation would look good, but wouldn't look terribly inspiring and would look like a lot of roundabouts. And I want something that when people come into Port Orchard, like, I've never seen that before. That is really cool. And because these are, they're not showcases, but they're focal points.
Mhm.
So this one is,
so this is a second option. This would be more, I guess, more intensively planted. Instead of having a central tree, we would have 3 trees kind of in a grove. We would think that we would have these kind of gabion wall filled with stone in kind of a wave pattern. So when you look at it, kind of as you're driving up, you kind of see these different waves, give it some undulation, some movement, along with more heavily landscaped, probably a ground cover in there, and some larger, then some medium shrubs and some larger shrubs, and then the backside would probably have some medium shrubs as well. Again, these gabion walls could be lit up at night. You could light up the trees with underlighting as well, and it could be a pretty dramatic effect.
okay. I'll just say that I've seen those gabion walls and they tend to withstand the test of time.
They are pretty, for some reason, I don't have the third one.
It's the first sheet, Trent.
Oh, is it? Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, so our last concept was incorporating more of different levels, and by doing that, we would have these kind of curved, undulating walls that were made out of concrete. Again, we would have them highlighted with lighting, and then in the center it would be more of an intensive sort of, so it kind of look like this from the side, where you've got these undulating walls. And then we would have a large planting area on top of that with a single tree that could be uplit as well, some medium shrubs, and then some lower shrubs below that. And we had kind of incorporated the concept of this from your ferry dock into, we could do it in concrete, we could do it recessed, or it could be something else, but maybe we would also have something kind of imprinted in the concrete wall itself.
Actually, out of the three, I think that this one is the most unique one because of the levels. And maybe imprint something that's really a part of our downtown instead of that, that little wave and a little round circle. Maybe put a ferry there or something more nautical. And I like the way lights can be lit up. I think that is a really nice feature to, and it can change with the season too, but like having lights on the tree, that would be, I like that.
So can we take a look at the second one again?
Yeah, the other thing to think about is you could incorporate elements from any of these into any one of the designs. I mean, you probably have to pick some kind of a, what you want the structure to look like, but as far as the landscaping and everything, it can change.
Mhm.
They're just kind of ideas.
Yeah.
And how much time do we have? So, I mean, we don't have to vote on something like tonight, right?
It'd be ideal that if you guys could come to somewhat of a consensus and a recommendation. We need to take this to the full council, but it's, in our committee, in your committee work, if there's consensus that the committee recommends X, but we share all of the concepts with the full council.
So I've got my point of view on this on roundabout art. I don't know if anybody's driven through Wenatchee as an example on the way to Chelan. They've got a really cool tall, I mean, it must be 15 feet, maybe more tall of a tree that's made out of metal art. It's really cool. It's 3-dimensional, so it's not flat, but it's a very, very cool looking piece of metal art that resembles a tree. If you've been to Bend, Oregon, and you're headed to Mount Bachelor, you'll see that you come up on a roundabout where there is a giant metal O. You would look at it and think it's a flat O, but as you drive around the roundabout, you realize it's not, and that O transitions into an infinity symbol. And so it's moving as you're driving around. It's changing its shape. I mean, its shape isn't literally changing, but as you see it, it's changing as you drive around the roundabout. And that's pretty cool. I will say that I'd like to see more different kind of roundabout art in the future. But as it stands for this, I like option 2, what we're looking at. I prefer that over the others. So Mark, what are your thoughts? You're the tiebreaker, perhaps.
Well, I think in this case, if we're going for votes, I would be the tiebreaker. So I went with option number 1, which I'm not going to go with. I do like the Gabon walls, or I like the options of having the 3 trees in there as well. So I would, if I were forced to vote, I would vote for this option we're seeing right here, which I believe is option number 2.
Okay.
Well, and
I like that it's not entirely symmetrical, right? The other ones are all about symmetry, and this kind of breaks that up.
And you can plant trees accordingly.
So how do you all feel about a single tree versus a few trees?
Well, are we getting more credit with our NPDES permit, for example, with 3 trees than with 1?
We don't have a requirement for the trees. Our requirement is that we have to identify our current tree canopy. And
Okay.
the other component is the underserved areas that we identify in the future.
I think we
I like the 3 trees.
I think, yeah, I think we also need something that's pretty low maintenance. That's not going to require I mean, this one looks like a ton of vegetation, and it sounds like we can also combine some of this stuff. You don't have to just go with this one. You can do a combination of the different designs.
I guess careful what you
So-
ask for. These guys don't work for free.
Yeah, so Mark, are you comfortable with
Kinda.
this as it's presented with 3 trees?
Yeah, I like that idea of 3 varying sized trees as they grow, giving a little bit of an inconsistent height plate on the top of it as well. So yeah, I'm comfortable with this.
I'm comfortable with this as presented. I'm not, one seemed like kind of a more of a common option if you want to describe that. I like the fins, but I don't know if people would get that quite as readily. And number 3 also has maintenance obligations with it, the way it was shown, perhaps even more maintenance obligations because there was a lot of ground mulch that you would have to make sure weeds are staying out of, as I recall seeing that.
So
As
can this,
well-
can
Go
this
ahead.
cover be something other than grass so that we're not mowing in here? It's some sort of a, I don't know. I'm not a landscape architect. This year.
There's Irish mosses and clovers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably even incorporate some artificial turf in some of the areas too, and
I just saw that in California at a conference I was at, and I was blown away how good it looked from once you stood on top of it, you knew it was turf, but from 10, 15 feet away, it was beautiful. And this is elevated, and I don't think there's any risk of anybody driving on this. That could be a good alternative, and it's
Yeah.
Yeah, turf.
Yeah, sure. What's the lifespan of turf typically? Does anybody know?
I know if you're playing on it, it's about 10 years before you start programming replacement. So our landscape architect probably is going to give you better numbers than that.
Yeah. All right. I'm happy with that as an option. That would take care of maintenance obligations.
Yeah.
For the most part.
And you two like that one. I like the third one, and you don't have to put as much vegetation in it. I like I've never seen a roundabout that is in different levels. That
Would the
so
best of all worlds then be to, maybe not have sporadic gabions, but have them kind of ring around like the other one had around the perimeter?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
I don't. Yeah.
So
I don't,
they're accent pieces like here.
Yeah.
In some fashion. Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
And maybe, we've got more roundabout designs coming up. I'd like to see, I also did like the third option with the variable walls around it. Maybe we could look at in the future direction to incorporate those variable walls with some metal art is what I would love to put to the council. So sort of a hybrid in the future.
The next one we're going to be designing after this is the one at Lund and Bethel, and it's going to be a huge roundabout. So there's going to be to do a lot of something.
Yeah.
Because that's a double lane roundabout.
Yeah, that should be considered a showpiece for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm trying to count votes. It looks like it's 2 that are for this as it's been presented.
And it's going to go to the full council. I just
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
a
This just
committee recommendation for coming out of work.
All right, I'm down with that.
All right, thank you guys.
Okay, sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All
Appreciate
right.
your patience with us.
Yeah, no problem.
Of course.
Let us know if anything else.
right.
Okay. I think now we're back to updates. Or is there anything more on Bethel Phase 1? I think that was it, right?
I think that's all. Yeah.
Okay.
Just trying to get
Okay.
some
I'll
insights
jump
on where
off.
we're going to go with the look and feel project.
Okay.
So just some updates. We've been working feverishly on the State Route 166 Bay Street reconstruction project, and just want to update you on our progress. The 30% design was completed a few weeks ago. So the city's been working on getting that all reviewed. We've been spending quite a bit of time coordinating with Puget Sound Energy and how we're going to approach the undergrounding for the street. And we have next step for you will be next time around, we'll be having that consultant team come in, the KPFF team, and provide a presentation about the how that alignment's shaping up. Tremont 2 and 3, that's a new project for us. Christian's the project manager and for the city. And we were able to get the funding approval from WashDOT and provide notice to proceed. And you have previously approved the professional service agreement. So that one's getting started.
I'm sorry, I was taking notes, and so I was not totally plugged into Tremont 2 and 3. Could you just summarize that again?
Yeah, so we just kicked that one off. We're getting ready to kick off that project. We've got our funding approval.
Okay.
Council's approved the professional service agreement, and we're just waiting on that funding approval to get started.
Okay. So I think now we're down to, oh, is that it then for the updates?
Yeah, that's it for the highlights of projects.
Okay. So I think we're down to comp plan and TIP update.
Yeah, so I pushed out some information about that. We had talked about it earlier in the year, about some of the proposed additions to the TIP, Transportation Improvement Plan. And we just wanted to give you all the opportunity to see what that looks like today before it goes on to Nick. What's the next step on Jim?
Yeah, so you have two items, the transportation element. We have an updated transportation element that will be going to Planning Commission in the packet later this week. And the TIP is actually adopted by reference in the comp plan. And so that is our 6 and 20-year project list, and is also helps form the basis of our impact fee program. And so it's important to make sure that there aren't any missing projects on that list that you are hoping to see done. I think all of our level of service projects have made their way into the TIP, but in terms of sidewalk projects and other types of projects, this is an opportunity to talk about adding things to the list.
Okay. Is that all you wanted to say about the comp plan and the TIP?
No, I was going to actually have Jim give you a little bit of an overview on the transportation element, just in terms of what's changed since the last version was released. And so, Jim, I think you're still on here.
Sure, yeah, I'm here.
I think Councilmember Trenary had a question. Sorry.
Oh, sorry about that. Mark.
Well, I'm just piggybacking on what Nick said about adding things, and I'm not requesting an add on this, but I just don't. I want to bring to note South Kitsap Boulevard and the continually deteriorating curbs along the internal, what do you call those, swells?
Yeah.
And I have some concern with that. I drive that daily, obviously, or I wouldn't know as much about it as I do. But as they're breaking down, we're leaving ourselves in a bad position of having someone easily able to drive into those swells and damage vehicles and perhaps themselves. Is there any discussion amongst the city with replacing those curbs at some point, or doing some sort of modification to update those swell areas?
And I would just piggyback on that and say how easy it is to replace the curbs along that. I know some of them are curved and look like they're custom made, but
so those it's not the appropriate application for what's there. It's a very soft, almost mortar-like mix that they use for those poured in place curbs. To do it right, you would really have to excavate. Christian, what's your standard? You just did some curbing on Pottery, 24 inches, to have something that would be a little bit more robust. But we've been discussing this with the ops and the engineering team. There's some opportunities for possible stormwater retrofits, but we would need to design something, whether that be in-house or having a consultant do it, to do that. Ops would love to fill them in and have an enclosed structure. Chris, you have any thoughts on it?
Well, I thought we had some discussions about doing a, cast in place curb rather than a extruded curb, and to make those repairs. And did that ever make it in the budget for this biennium as far as, I don't know if it says specifically, but I think we intended to go out and get that repaired at some point here.
So the repair's not budgeted.
It would be in the streets with preservation dollars,
Okay.
bucket of dollars. And if that's a priority, then we'll find a way. And I personally would like to fill them in, because you had, we grow grass a foot tall, 3 feet tall in them. They look like crap, but I don't know that we can, because I think it's part of the storm infrastructure. So it'd be nice to look for different alternatives than the curbing we have. Even a curbing there, you can drive down into the doggone things.
Well, a lot of the curbing is missing. And it really went into disrepair with the Tremont roundabout is where it got hammered.
Yeah.
It would be nice to have an interim plan that at least makes it perhaps a little safer, but also looks better. And I don't know if that's possible to do without more permanent solutions instead. So where are we landing on that then?
So I don't think that is a project that needs to be specifically called out in the tip, because it is a maintenance and preservation project of an existing facility. If we were upgrading it or adding capacity to the road, that's a different story. So I think the mayor's suggestion that we use our preservation dollars for that, that's really just prioritizing what we're going to preserve in our 2-year budget, or potentially, pushing it out a few more years.
Okay.
It's sounding like to me it's a priority for you guys, and we'll take that direction and try to find some solutions within the preservation dollars that we have. Which is just going to mean less miles of blacktop.
Well, is that?
I'm not happy about that.
I'm just
Right.
I'm just being realistic. That's the bottom the dollars it's going to come out of.
When you pour curbs there, like the curbs that are there now, are they poured off site and then anchored in?
No, it's a machine that lays those down, and they're just mortar. They're made out of mortar. It's just no different than what is put in a parking lot. It's just
Okay.
it's a bad application. It should have never been designed that way.
Hmm.
There's no concrete, there's no rocks in it. It's made out of mortar. So the first
Yeah, it's pretty crumbly.
it just blows up.
Yeah. Okay. I think that doing something with that, I think, is pretty important and would help with beautification.
I see Dennis taking notes. So I guess we wanted to get a little bit more of an update on the comp plan.
Sure, I think the last time you all saw this was probably late spring of this year. So we've made some revisions to the transportation element that reflect some updated land use forecasts, some travel demand studies, public input, and we've essentially finalized the Bethel sub-area plan. So all of those kind of play into this revision. So we've opened the public hearing, Planning Commission on October 1st, and since then we've made a couple more revisions, and those key revisions relate to travel demand and level of service forecasts. There's some minor refinements that were made to the travel demand and intersection segment level of service forecast along Bethel and Sedgwick corridors. As a result of those two, there was 2 prior LOS deficiencies that have been resolved. One at the intersection of Pottery and Lippert, and then a segment of Sedgwick Road just west of SR 16. Widening of Pottery Avenue, after staff reviewed the element, the proposal to widen Pottery Avenue from Tremont to SR 16 to 4 lanes was removed from the project list. That's just because it didn't align with the arterial plan, the network vision. It didn't support such a widening. There's some alternative capacity improvements at Pottery and South Kitsap Boulevard. It's a failing intersection of Pottery and South Kitsap. An alternative improvement was identified. That's an all-way stop control and is now included in the project list to address capacity issues at that intersection. We refined some cost estimates for several projects to align with the most recent TIP estimates, and adjustments were made using the National Highway Construction Cost Index values to ensure accuracy. Revenue forecasts have been populated based on feedback from staff and available data. The financial section was updated to reflect the revised project list, refined cost estimates, and the new revenue forecasts. And then at the Planning Commission meeting on October 1st, we did receive some public comment, specifically about bike lanes and separated bike paths. So in response to that, we've included policy T17. It's been expanded to better address those concerns, which discusses contextually sensitive bike paths. So we plan to take this to the Planning Commission. Well, this version that was provided in your packet in red line, that's going to be shared with the Planning Commission for the October 29 Planning Commission meeting. We anticipate they will take additional public testimony and hopefully make a recommendation to the City Council. So that's really the summary of the changes that have occurred since you last saw this element.
Okay. I'm not going to try and summarize those changes to the comp plan in tonight's committee report, but I'll let people know that we talked about the key changes.
Well, if you'd like, I could email you something that kind of summarizes that.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. You said that's policy T17?
Correct.
Okay. Including connected and protected bike and pedestrian pathways where contextually appropriate. Okay.
And that same lady who made that public comment, she was at the Bethel sub-area workshop at the library in July, and she had a lot to say about that particular subject there as well. So it was good to hear her get involved in the hearing.
I suspect we've gotten emails from her as well in the past.
I have not, but perhaps.
I think I have. Okay. Anything else? Okay, future agenda items. There's nothing really to review there. We can see what we've got. SR 166 Bay Street reconstruction. So this is informing on a November meeting, correct?
Yeah, I'm going to try to get that set up for November.
Okay. And then
More in tune with the
road
project.
preservation. Sorry?
I want to try to get you more in tune with the project.
Okay. And then road preservation in January of 2025, and maybe that's where we can talk more about South Kitsap Boulevard. And grant applications also will be discussed in January.
We got to be careful there. Noah's got me on project restriction. Grants take match, and they take staff resources to work and perform. We need to deliver on what we've got before us. But I think our biggest grant request will probably be for Bethel Phase 1 as we get farther along and trying to get some additional dollars, likely from TIB.
Okay. Well, I think that's it for the agenda items. Anything for the good of the order? Heidi, were you trying to say something? You're muted? No?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. Well, I guess that's it then. And we'll see everybody in an hour. Well, maybe not everybody, but we'll see people in an hour.
Yep. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
Everyone.
Thank you.